Discernment, signal or noise? How do you know what to trust? We are so saturated, inundated with information. There's a lot of noise, a whole bunch of quick fixes, and it's hard to know what's right or wrong. Yesterday, I got sucked down a rabbit hole on social media where there must have been 50 different opinions about which skin creams to use. It's hard to know who to trust and who's just trying to sell you. In addition, we are increasingly entrenched and firm in our individual stances. We feel sure about things. But the thing is, feeling sure isn't the same as being right. Certainty requires evidence. You can't just have a feeling that you're sure and say, well, that's it, I'm right. Believe it or not, data shows that increasingly, despite those firm stances, people are consciously becoming more discerning about what they consume, how much time they spend on it, and who they actually trust. So, how can you learn to be discerning, to root out the noise and figure out what you should trust, who you should trust? Well, the good news is there are two psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Klein, who studied this and created the conditions for intuitive expertise. And apparently, these two don't agree on a lot, but they agree on when you can trust your gut. So, we'll look at that today in depth. Your gut is worth trusting if there are two conditions. One, is the situation regular enough to send you real signals where you can actually learn? And two, have you had enough reps? Have you been through that situation regularly enough, getting honest feedback so that you did learn from them? When either one of those is missing, you shouldn't trust your gut. So let's apply the Helm method to start testing out discernment and whether to trust our gut. And we'll go back to that situation about you being a delivery manager with a product launch and the status is all green and Marcus has been quiet and you have ignored your signals and you have noticed the cues but chosen to ignore them. The framework is aim, act, and adjust. Aim is about being aware and setting your intention. In the story of you as this product manager and dismissing your intuition about Marcus, you want to step back and say, what kind of leader am I? I'm an intentional leader, and I am willing to question myself. I am willing to be wrong. I'm willing to consider multiple points of view. And instead of letting the difficult situations go, face them. So then you're looking for signals. What real signals do you have in this situation? Have you experienced this situation enough to receive signals and learn from them? That's one of the questions. Yes, absolutely. This isn't your first product launch. You've done at least 20. That's 20 rounds of feedback about how product launches work, how they typically go, and what kind of status you should see at this point in the initiative. You have collected data and feedback on the experience. Okay, what other cues? You know this team. You've worked with the people on this team for a while. In particular, Marcus, the one who gave you that little flicker that you questioned, you've worked closely with him for 5 years. And then do you normally trust yourself? Do you normally feel confident about your decisions and about your intuition and your discernment? Have you earned that instinct in this case? This is not a new situation. You've been through it many times before and you've gotten feedback and learned from it. You've earned your instincts here. Some people don't trust themselves or they deliberately look to stir up trouble and cause doubt. Is that you in this situation? No. Are you following real clues? It seems so. Marcus going quiet in the status meeting is a real readable cue. All greens on a product launch when you've never seen that before on a dashboard in the 20 launches you've done, that's a cue. Second step, act. Acting is about taking action on that intention that you've set. So knowing that you want to use discernment as a tool to help you be an intentional leader, then choose some options. You might make small actions that help you validate those cues. Look at the facts and data, dig deeper into the data behind that dashboard. Maybe go talk to individuals on the team and definitely go have a one-on-one with Marcus to probe what's going on with that unusual quietness. It may be a false cue. It could be that there's a personal issue that has nothing to do with the status, and that's why he was quiet and he really does believe the product launch is green. But you might also find out that he's hiding information because he doesn't want to look like the bad guy yet again, derailing the team progress so close to launch. Instead of guessing, look for facts and data, points of view, and perspective. And remember, challenging points of view or dissent is also perspective and data to be considered. Third step is adjust. As you take this action, you may find additional data and cues that you need to consider. It could pull you further in the same direction that you were sensing, or it could divert you. You may be able to quickly sum up and find out that green is okay. The important part of the framework is that you don't pick your intention, aim for it, take action, and go full steam ahead, ignoring all the other signals and cues and data. We want to allow room for adjustment in the process because we are human. working with humans and working with fallible technology. This is how we learn and grow. We set our intention, we act, but we adjust with compassion and grace. We don't go straight towards one point in time. We don't go straight after one decision, not allowing any room for other data, considerations, or points of view. Knowing what is the right thing for your team, your environment, and your leadership is what matters. And being able to pivot as new data comes in is important. It's okay to pause, gut check, slow down, and verify the information instead of pretending or assuming that the feeling you have is wisdom. This can be rather hard. So let's go back to our definition of discernment. Discernment, as we learned in the first episode on discernment and judgment, is a perception skill. It's separating signals from noise, which we're studying a little bit deeper in detail here today, and noticing that a cue that contradicts the information or the story that everybody's telling is important. It may be important to you. It's a signal to you. It helps you tell what's really going on from what appears to be going on or what's on the surface. Discernment is also trusting your gut and realizing that your intuition can be reliable when you have enough regular cues in an environment that you've been in before, and you've gotten feedback on those cues over time and learned from them. That's important. If it's your first time in an environment and you've never done this before, don't trust your gut. Challenge your gut. It could be right, but you need to make sure. Don't rely just on that feeling. Let's take some everyday examples to help explore this further. Let's say in your daily life, you know your hometown weather really well. You've watched a heavy, cloudy sky turn into a big downpour enough times to know that you're going to grab an umbrella before you head outside. You've experienced that sky and the rain and had feedback about not having an umbrella with you enough times to know that you want to bring an umbrella. Okay, now let's say that you head out to the mountains for a weekend vacation and you look out the door, there's a beautiful sunny sky, and you head out, no umbrella. But in the mountains, the weather changes quickly. So one second you can have a sunny sky and the next second a heavy downpour. Same thing in South Florida now that I think about it. But you get my point. You're trusted. I know what the sky looks like. It's not gray or cloudy. That gut feeling is suddenly wrong because you're in a different environment where you have less feedback and inputs. You don't have the repetitions in the mountains that you have at home. So you have that same confidence, but when it's applied in a new environment without repetitions in that environment, you don't have any real feedback. Your discernment in the first case is always spot on because you've had repetitions and feedback. So you know at home what the weather is like. But in this case, in the mountains, it's a guess. And that guess is going to fail you. You're going to get wet. Let's take another water example. I don't know why all the examples are water. This is a garden hose. Let's say you go out a couple times a week to turn the hose on to water the garden. But you've also noticed that with the slightest distraction, the neighbor comes over or you start pulling weeds, you forget entirely that that hose is running and you come back later to realize you flooded the garden. And you promise yourself you're going to do better and you're going to remember, you commit to remembering to turn it off, but it happens again. You get distracted, you flood the garden. So the flooded yard is feedback to you in a consistent environment where you regularly go out to water the garden. You can't trust your memory or your gut to remind you to turn that water off. So now you've got enough repetitions and feedback to become discerning that says, when I go out to water the garden, I need to set a timer or else I'll never remember to turn that hose off before it floods. Okay, a non-water example. Let's take your daily commute. You know your drive home from work cold. You do it 5 days a week, you could practically do it in your sleep. When you get to this one section of the commute, there's this light. And if you don't get out of that lane, you'll get stuck behind all these people trying to turn left and it will delay you on your way home. So before you even reach that light, you find yourself merging to get out of that lane and keep going on your path. It's not even a conscious decision anymore because you've done 1,000 trips and you've had the feedback. You've got stuck in that light before when you forgot to merge. And so you have learned over time to make sure you get out of that lane and not get stuck behind the left turn lane traffic. But if you drop yourself into a city where you've never driven before, that same confident gut is probably less helpful to you. You're not going to have the cues and the repetition for this particular drive through the city. Your ability to navigate rush hour and know which lanes to avoid is based off of your local route. But in this big city, you probably won't know. You may have some instincts that carry over, but you're much less likely to have that gut instinct that says, oh, I got to avoid this lane so that I don't get stuck here for a few minutes in traffic. Things you can do to check your discernment is before you trust a gut feeling, ask yourself the Kahneman and Klein questions. Have I been in this situation regularly enough to have real signals and feedback? And if I've been in a situation regularly enough, do I actually have enough repetition, enough information coming into me to know which signal is true or false? Have I learned from it over time with a variety of feedback? Name your gut instinct out loud. Say, my instinct is to, and then fill in the blank. and then pause and say, that's my instinct, that's my flicker or the read I'm getting. And then what is my reaction? When you do that, you're creating a skill around it. But you've also got to ask yourself, have I been here before? Have I had enough information to learn from it? The reason instinct is trustworthy is that you've been corrected enough times to actually know. Cloudy gray sky at home is rain. When I go in the garden and get distracted, I will flood it. I've got stuck in that left lane before, but I've also successfully avoided it. That's how you're building this true gut instinct that you can trust. Now, I say this with all the love in the world. If you happen to be one of those people who's extremely gullible, who is regularly falling for stories or hype or misdirection, I invite you to phone a friend, get some help as you work on developing your discernment and trusting yourself. Get a second trusted opinion. Another thing that you can do is keep a win log. So we have built-in negativity bias. We remember all the bad things that happen to us far more than the times we've gotten things right. And that means that if you've fallen for some joke or prank, or if you're regularly being embarrassed about a decision that you made based on gut instinct, you may remember that more. And so take and create a log and write down, what was the gut instinct that I had? How did I validate it? And what was the outcome? And really pay attention to when you had a gut instinct that you validated and had a positive outcome, you can learn from those signals. And then pay attention and learn from the connections between those. You may find that you're telling yourself old stories and that you're much better at discernment than you're able to admit. Okay, 3 things you can try this week. An easy one is just ask yourself, is this a situation that I have real reps in? If I've done this 50 times before and I have a gut instinct about it, just notice that. And if I've never done it before, can I pause and slow down? Take it a little further and ask both of the questions. Is this a new experience? Have I ever had this experience before? And if I've had this experience before, have I had enough signals and feedback to actually have learned from the situation and the repetition? And then a little bit harder is, in your next meeting or situation where you get one of these gut instinct cues, notice it. Notice if it's contradicting the official story in the room. And then consider whether you want to dive a little deeper into that and to ask questions and to say, are we sure that this and this tie together? Do we want to explore that a little bit further and see how that turns out for you? If this is helpful to you, the free place to keep building your skills is right here. We post a new Mini But Mighty leadership lesson every week. This is part 3 of a 4-part series, so I invite you to subscribe and come back to keep learning about discernment and judgment, which is a human intelligence skill. And if you'd like to learn more about human intelligence skills, I've got a free download for you, the Unmachined Top 10. The link to that is below in the description. If you're a corporate executive wanting to bring discernment and judgment to your organization, I invite you to reach out to me at bossatthehelm.com. We cultivate intentional leaders. Your gut is not magic, and trusting your instinct isn't woo. It's a learnable skill built from a record of every rep you've ever paid attention to, and you do have to pay attention. Learn which signals to trust, and when you have enough information and feedback to actually have good gut instinct. Also remember to stay humble in rooms where you don't have the experience or the reps or the feedback yet. You can learn so much in these environments if you're willing. Start with yourself, and then lead others. Be a boss. Join us here next Friday. We're going to wrap up this series on discernment and judgment by going deeper and in depth on building your judgment skills. By the way, I thank you for being here. If this has been helpful to you, please consider tapping like on the video and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you here next week.